Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another episode of the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for making this a part of your morning routine. If you haven't done so already, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the next half an hour of catching up on what's going on in the world of Arsenal and discussing, of course, with you guys in the live chat box as to some of your questions about what's going on right now, as we are in the Gunners' world of football. Let's say good morning, of course, to our fantastic chat box. Matt G, good morning to you. Rich, good morning to you. Colin, Afsar, Blackshine, Akmal, Vivian, Stevie, Martin, Blackshine, Carl, Morgie, Manu, Lars, Bram, Percy, Stephen, Elder Boatza, Arn, James, Red Star, Clincy, Dave, Anthony, Kaiser. Good morning. To everybody else as well joining us in the chat box too. Thank you, as always, for making this part of your morning routines with your cuppa, with your, with of course, what you've got with your cereal. I tell you what, people have sent me some random messages where they're like telling me the things they do whilst they watch the 8 a.m. show. Some people have some weird. Some people are still eating Cookie Crisp. It's a genuine thing. Like there are other cereals available, of course, but who on earth is eating that for breakfast? Who wants cookies for breakfast? You absolute mad people. Anyway, let's get on with today's news and topics. First of all, of course, the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat podcast returns in its full strength. We're back up to full strength after Sophie and Owen's absence from last week. We recorded a show last night talking about the review of the transfer window and talking about whether or not us missing out on our priority targets is a problem. So you'll be able to watch that at midday today, which is obviously around again lunchtime. So you get a show with your breakfast, you get a show with your lunch. You could not ask for more from TGT. The 1886 banner is now up at the Emirates Stadium, looking rather fine, if I do say so myself. I think there's something to be said about massive font that kind of stands out. And yeah, I think you can't say anything less than it looks great. I think it's looking fantastic. I think the stadium is looking so much more vibrant and modern, and it stands out. So yeah, really good work, those behind all of the placards that have been going up around the Emirates Stadium. Gabriel Jesus hinted that his return is nearing, with him posting a picture of him wearing his boots outside. He's working, hopefully, more with the ball outside. And the closer you get to, full fitness and a return to football, you do start to do all your work outside. So that's a really good sign for Gabriel Jesus. The expectation has always been kind of February, March. I was kind of told more March, but if he is ahead of schedule, that's obviously going to be really good indeed for the Gunners. Albert Sambi Lokonga has been speaking about his move to Crystal Palace, talking about his conversations with Patrick Vieira. And it's unsurprising, of course, to see someone reference someone like Vieira in the reasons as to why he has decided to join Crystal Palace on a season-long loan. He was also asked about the famous atmosphere at Crystal Palace. He says, I can't forget that. I need to mention that. The fans are always pushing the team, and it's good to play at home, and we know that the fans are behind you. I will try to be myself. I will try to bring the ball forward, and I will try to make the job easy for my partners. I'm looking forward to connecting with the players in the space behind the defence, and I want to be myself and bring something new to the team, which they don't have. I can't wait to meet the Palace fans, and hopefully you will be behind us. You'll be behind us for the rest of the season. Indeed, Lokonga has done. I think it's a good move for him. I have my question marks around the reasons as to why we let him go. I think it's left us a little bit thin. But Sambi Lokonga indeed now, I think, is happier, more confident, and hopefully we see an improvement. He will be included, of course, in our loan roundup show, which I'm going to be doing next week. That's when the loan roundup show will be, because I kind of wanted to give a week of fixtures so that we can introduce our brand new loan roundup experts to have a week of football, even if it's just one game that they've played, to introduce their feelings about the players signing for their clubs on loan, so that you guys can get some insight. So we'll be getting some brand new influencers on the channel talking about their players that have joined from Arsenal on loan for the rest of the season. Now, Arsenal's B team is looking pretty darn strong. I put a tweet up yesterday looking at kind of the players that are at the moment what we would describe as the second string. And yes, you'll be surprised maybe that Gabriel Jesus features in this list. But if we're being very honest, Eddie Nketiah has done exceptionally well and deserves a place in the Arsenal first team. This team can be made up of Turner, Tomiyasu, Holding, Kivior, Tierney, Jorginho, Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira, Nelson, Trossard, and Gabriel Jesus. It's an incredibly strong B-side, but we're never going to see this team play. I think we all know that. But what it does tell us is the options that we've got from the bench. And you can only have 9 players on your bench. So at least 2 of these people, not including Turner, of course. Well, I suppose including Turner, but he's not going to miss out because the backup goalkeeper. 2 of these players are going to miss out every single week. Now, at the moment, that's obviously Nelson and Gabriel Jesus. They're the players that are going to miss out at this moment in time because they're injured. But when Nelson and Gabriel Jesus return, somebody on this list is not going to be on the bench, and potentially 2 of them if he wants to include Nelson. I imagine Nelson might be the one that falls. But when Gabriel Jesus returns, you've got to decide to leave somebody out of this group of players. Be interesting to think who you would leave out. I suppose people might suggest Rob Holding because you've got Kivior, you've got Tomiyasu. Maybe it makes the most sense to leave him out. But very interesting to see who is going to not be picked for the team if indeed Jesus does return soon. Now, Nuno Tavares had an amazing run that led to one of Marseille's 2 goals in their 2-0 win over Nantes. If you haven't yet been able to catch the video of his run, it was particularly impressive. It was actually rather an inverted run, if you like, because he managed to run inside, turn the players inside out, play a brilliant through ball through, and I think it was the Nantes defender that ended up poking it through his own goalkeeper. But if you haven't yet managed to see Tavares, make sure that you do, because he has done really, really well this season. Of course, will also feature in our loan roundup next week. But the main star of course, Liga right now is Folarin Balogun. He scored a hat-trick in Marseille, in Reims' 4-2 victory over Lorient, and done really, really well with the 3 goals. You know, we've seen some strange hat tricks down the years. I remember there's a really famous one by Onuachu, the Genk striker, that was kind of laughed at. But if you are able to catch a hat trick, and if you haven't watched it already, you just can find the highlights on YouTube or someone sharing the goals on Twitter. They are 3 really good finishes. The penalty's really well taken and confidently struck. But the third goal is something, you know, the ball over the top, the left-footed finish. You can't help but think Van Persie when you see that type of finish. You know, against Everton, that goal that he scored didn't go off the post, this one, but it's the left-footed kind of half volley that he smashes underneath the goalkeeper. A brilliant, brilliant finish that now takes him to, I think, 14 goals for the season, which makes him the Liga top scorer, and he's overtaken Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi in the Liga scoring charts for Reims. Not for PSG. He's playing for Reims this season, which is an amazing achievement for him. And I'll tell you what, Mikel Arteta has got a hell of a decision to make when it comes to Folarin Balogun and how he might reintegrate him back into the team next season. Now, Callum Hudson-Odoi is supposedly being attracted by Arsenal. This is according to Jacob Steinberg of The Guardian, who claim that Chelsea are willing to let him leave and that Arsenal are one of the teams that are interested in potentially making a move for the England international. Callum Hudson-Odoi will, of course, be out of favour when he returns to Chelsea in the summer, after they've signed the likes of Mykhailo Mudryk, Noni Madueke, and they've still got plenty of other wide players, including Amari Hutchinson, whose loan move fell apart on deadline day, supposedly. He was meant to move to West Brom on loan. But that loan move fell apart, and a lot of Arsenal fans have been very quick to point out how regretful Amari Hutchinson may be about that switch to the Blues. Our headline story of the day is The Athletic have claimed that Arsenal and Brighton's relationship has, quote, soured, and that engagement between the clubs will become less regular because Brighton are frustrated, and there's, I think we can assume, some anger inside the club regarding the process behind Arsenal's bidding for Caicedo. Now, I reported this story yesterday, sourcing the information from The Athletic, and I'll tell you what, I was stunned. I was stunned at some of the responses I got to this tweet. Like, I get that it's an article that's not the most positive, you know, and it's certainly just highlighting a story that's been reported elsewhere, and that is my job. I tell you what, I was getting battered in the responses. People saying that it's not true. Why would I write this? That this is just assumptions. There's no source, even though I had sourced the Athletics article in the actual piece that I wrote. I really get that people are defensive about Arsenal. I understand that. I'm defensive about Arsenal, but yeah, I have to say, if I got a taste of what the Arsenal fan base can do in some senses to what I know plenty of Brighton reporters have suffered and Arsenal reporters have suffered over the transfer window, because I know for a fact, speaking to some of my colleagues who do cover Brighton, they've received untold abuse by the coverage of the Caicedo situation, and all they did was report the facts. Unfortunately, now it may be that Arsenal fans don't like the facts. That Brighton didn't want to sell, that it didn't matter how much Arsenal bid, they weren't going to sell. They could have bid 100 million, maybe more, and they wouldn't have sold. But Arsenal fans didn't like that, and so some reverted and resulted in abusing other journalists. And I received my own taste of that medicine yesterday, which was a real shame. A real shame. And I encourage those, if you are listening, that did respond to that tweet, to read back your responses and maybe think, that wasn't the best idea, because it wasn't nice. Trust me, it was not a great day yesterday. I did not have the best of days at all. And the responses to that story certainly didn't help. But in my view on this story, I'm not surprised that Brighton's perception of this has frustrated them, because if you think about it, they told Arsenal he wasn't for sale at any price at this stage in the window. Who knows what would happen if we'd have gone in earlier in the window and given them time to move a player on? Who knows? Could have been very different. We don't know, and we won't know. But they told them no, and ultimately this situation has unsettled Caicedo. And of course, there is a situation with his agents that has become really poor as well. But yeah, Brighton handled the situation. I think they dealt with it as well as they could. They gave him time off until after the window closed, and pushed forward. So they are annoyed that Arsenal didn't get the hint. Supposedly, they're annoyed that the situation kind of just didn't end, even though they warned Arsenal off of the player. And despite the good relationship between us and the club from our deals for both Trossard and Ben White, it's reportedly, according to the very well-connected sources, I should add, at The Athletic, it is indeed has supposedly soured. Doesn't mean it's not recoverable. Hopefully it will be recoverable in the future. This is football, this is business. Hopefully things can improve and change. But for the moment, the clubs aren't on the best of terms. So yeah, that's it. I mean, I can already see at the moment, like, people in the chat box are like, who cares? Like, why does it matter? Like, people are very, very defensive of the club, and I get that. I really get that. And as you know, I have been very defensive of Arsenal, but we were told the player weren't for sale, and we kept going. It's unsettled him, and it meant that they didn't have him. And who knows what it might do for the rest of their season, and what it might do for Caicedo's performance for the rest of the season. We should have taken that answer as gospel. You know, if we're told the player is categorically not for sale at any price, and you've bid already significantly over the player's value, I can understand why there would be frustration there. Now, you need not be frustrated with your own internet security, because you can get yourselves a fantastic subscription to NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner and getting yourself a significant discount off a subscription. You're also able to be changing your geolocation, of course, so you can then watch things that wouldn't typically be available in the country of origin. So you go on holiday and when you want to watch a bit of reality TV that's only available in your home country, maybe it's a bit of Made in Chelsea, maybe it's a bit of I don't know, to be honest, that's the only one I watch. But from my perspective, that's not available when I go abroad. But when I use NordVPN, I change my geolocation. My phone or tablet or laptop thinks that it's back in the UK, and I can watch anything I like to my heart's content. If you don't like the service, of course, you can get a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, which, I mean, who can say any fairer than that? If you don't like the service, you get your money back. Simples. So do go do this, nordvpn.com/Gooner, to get yourself the latest subscription. And also, Full Prizes has returned, and they've returned with quite a good prize. A signed Leandro Trossard Arsenal shirt. You can hang it up wherever you please. And you can know that this is signed, as always, with the certificate of authenticity for the 2022-23 shirt. There's also some instant win prizes involved in this one as well. You can get yourself a Patrick Vieira signed and custom framed Arsenal photo montage, and plenty of football prizes, site credit, so you can involve yourself in further competitions down the line as well. Link in the description. Okay, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Lovely stuff. Let's go to part two and hear what you're saying. Thank you. I've seen a couple of you leave some kind comments. I appreciate that. Look, I don't want to sound like I'm begging for attention or something like that. It's not about that. It's just that yesterday was rubbish, like genuinely so bad. I've got other stuff going on, which I'll talk about actually on the Eat Sleep Arsenal Repeat podcast, which you'll hear later. Like, I'm not able to get out and exercise at the moment because of having a small operation. So I'm not in the best of kind of headspaces either. And so when when you write an article which sources information and you're just giving your own view of it, and then you're the one getting abuse online, I dread to think what it was like for those Brighton reporters that, again, were just doing their job and reporting on stories. Do I agree with some of the coverage and how it was put across? No, not entirely. But the bottom line is none of what was said deserved the abuse that people were suffering after just reporting on the situation. So there you go. Rio, thank you so much for becoming a brand new member of the channel. Really appreciate the kind support that you're showing, and welcome to the TGT family. Let's take some of your questions. Amira says, is Tavares our mystery winger? Also random, but anyone else miss the pink kit? We've not worn it in a long, long time. When was the last time we actually wore our third kit? I'm thinking hard. Was it Bournemouth? I know we wore it at Bournemouth. I'm sure we did. But beyond that, I can't remember the last time we wore the pink kit. If you think about it, pink's a pretty close colour to red. And so whenever we could wear the pink kit, we can probably wear the home kit. And that makes it harder to wear because you're trying to justify not wearing the home kit. Usually they wear like the third kit because obviously it's a commercial thing, it's advertising it in a way by wearing it, but I don't think we've worn it since Bournemouth. And then before that, you're going into the pre-season. I think we've only worn it once. Also, did we wear it at Palace? I think we might have. Did we wear it at Palace? I think we might have worn it at Palace as well. But yeah, we have not worn that kit at all this season, really. 2 games is all I can remember. So there you go. Rich says, Tom, I'm pretty happy with Jorginho if I'm correct. Elneny's contract is up at the end of the season, and Jorginho is an upgrade from him. Fairly happy. 12 million for 18 months, can't complain. Elneny's contract is up, but we do have an option, and there are suggestions that we might actually activate that option in his contract. There's nothing wrong with having extra depth, but I just hope that extending Elneny's contract does not affect us signing a quality player in the summer. I hope so. He is a very valued member of the team, and certainly his influence is a big, big part of the unity within the squad. And Arteta really values those types of characters in the team. But it's still a lot of money to be paying a player that's not necessarily playing all that often. Let's go to Gooner Gang, who says Andy Naylor wasn't doing his job when he was winding up the Arsenal fans and enjoying the Arsenal social media hype. I've spoken to Andy Naylor. I think that Andy is a very, very well connected. He's been in the job a very, very long time and did his job reporting on the story. I know that his tweets wound up a few people. I'm not going to say that they didn't wind up a few people, but it did not justify the response. It did not justify some of the people that tweeted what they tweeted, him and others as well. So yeah, nothing justifies that. I'm not going to say that I wasn't, I wasn't wound up by some of the things I read across lots of different pages over the course of the January transfer window, but it didn't mean that I thought, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and call this guy loads of nasty names, and tell him this and tell him that. I mean, why do you care that much? Like, I don't get why people would get sucked into it and have that much care about it, that they would have to then make themselves look like an awful person for the things that they say. I don't get it. Let's go to Derek, who says, Tom, how far off realistically is Gabby and will he feel like a new signing? Realistically, I think you can expect a month plus still for him. I think it'll be March when we get him back. I hope I'm wrong and he's back earlier, of course, but I think it's probably a month. He will feel like a new signing because Nketiah has basically replaced him seamlessly. Like, we've not necessarily missed Jesus in terms of results. Maybe we could have done with him against City or against Newcastle, maybe. But I think Nketiah has done a great job. A really, really great job. Lewis says, I read the article on The Athletic. Reading between the lines, it seems the perception of Arsenal were the bullies, and no one likes a bully. Though if we want one of their players, a humble approach may see us buy from them again in the future. Look, relationships are there to be repaired. I say this in life. If you fall out with people, people fall out with people all the time. I don't particularly like falling out with people. It's not nice. But if there's willingness on both sides, and it's for the benefit of both sides, there is definitely scope to repair those relationships. So don't you worry. I'm sure that we'll be back and negotiating and doing business with Brighton in the future. Lynn says, Tom, Brighton I thought was prepared to sell after they won against Liverpool, and I thought every time we got their asking price, they put it up by another 10 mil. Lynn, I would give you a word of warning that the reports surrounding, the price tag, people saying they want this amount of money, they want this amount of money, I don't think there was all that much truth in those, to be honest. I think this may be part of being leaked by, and I don't know this for a fact, so don't take it as gospel, but you can see this type of thing being leaked maybe by the players' side, more so to kind of encourage Arsenal to keep bidding, if you know what I mean. I don't think it ever came out from Brighton at any stage what they would have accepted for him, because their stance was that he was not for sale. And it was as simple as that. Lee says, do you think that Caicedo will suffer serious abuse on his Brighton return? Or do you think they'll forgive and forget? I hope they forgive and forget. Brighton are a side going for European football this season. People are going to be annoyed at Brighton. People aren't going to particularly want Brighton to succeed from an Arsenal side. I get that. I don't particularly care. I think it'd be an amazing achievement if they get European football. And to be honest, I only have respect for their stance on the whole Caicedo situation. Why should they have to sell? Why should they, as some people have said, know their place in the foot? Why should they? Why on earth should they have to do that? I respect the fact that they didn't want to sell. I respect the fact that they've kept hold of him and that they're going to push for European football. Because if I was a Brighton fan, I would have been gutted to keep on losing our players. I'd be so angry losing players. We've been there as Arsenal fans. Fabregas, Nasri, Van Persie, because we were viewed as a side that weren't competing anymore. And these players wanted to go off to the Cities and the Man Uniteds, not only for the money, as we described. It wasn't just for the money. It was to win stuff, because we weren't winning stuff. And Brighton are in a situation where they're building towards being a team that they want to try and win stuff. They want to try and progress as much as they can. And how can you do that if you keep letting your players go? So fair play to them for keeping hold of him. I would have loved to see him at Arsenal. Weren't to be. Arsenal should have got the message and probably done business elsewhere sooner. And we can only look at ourselves for that. Ben says, question, if you had to choose next year between Eddie and Balogun, who's worth more on the market? I think they're worth pretty similar. Eddie's now on a long-term contract and doing it in the Premier League. And so he's going to be worth a very, very significant amount of money. Balogun doing it in what we would describe as a league that is not as competitive, or maybe competitive is not the right word. Doesn't provide strikers or forwards with as much of a challenge as what the Premier League level defenders will provide them with. But you still got to score the goals, and he's doing fantastically well. And he's going to be worth a serious amount of money as well. I can't see both staying. I think Eddie will be the one that stays, and that might annoy a few people. I don't really know why, because Eddie's done really, really well. But Balogun is a sellable asset for Arsenal, along with a number of other players in the squad. And Arsenal will have to move players on. It's just the way things work. If you're at the top, you have to move players on, because there isn't a place for them in the squad that's very, very competitive indeed. Nuances of Fate says, tell me the wisdom of buying Callum Hudson-Odoi. Depth. That's really all I've got. I wouldn't say that he's my choice. I think I'd look elsewhere in terms of options. I think he's on a lot of money in terms of wage, and I don't think that makes too much sense for Arsenal to go in and make him their signing and sign him for that amount. It's mad. It is mad how much money Chelsea put him on so early. But yeah, it is what it is. I don't really want to see Arsenal go for him. But of course, that is what the Guardian are suggesting, that Arsenal are indeed involved in him. Aditya says, what are your thoughts on the upcoming game? Can we see Jorginho playing? We are going to be doing tonight, I'm pretty sure tonight, our preview of the Everton game. It is Thursday, right? Yeah. So I'm going to be putting a message out into the Discord server. We're going to be doing our preview show 6 p.m. tonight on that. So do indeed tune in for that. I'll tell you my thoughts on that upcoming game in the preview show. So do indeed keep your alarms set for 6 p.m. UK time. Samuel says, Tom, you have to keep one of Eddie and Balo next season. Why and who? I keep Eddie because he's the one that's proving it in the Premier League. It's as simple as that. He's the one that's proving it in the Premier League. He's also on a longer term contract as well. So you're protected in that sense. Sell Balogun now. over Eddie, because his contract has 2 years left on it. You'll be able to get a huge, significant fee. That's the route I would go down. In a perfect world, we'd try and integrate them both and try and get the best of both, but it's very hard to see us being able to do that. I know people say that we need 3 strikers, but being able to try and keep 3 strikers happy is really tricky. Harvey says, hi, Tom. Makes me think of all the talk about Tielemans was all junk. How close he came to our club, blah, blah, blah. Jorginho is a good signing and might work as a James Milner colour signing for us. Harvey, I mean, I said back in the summer, what I heard and what I reported was that Arsenal were willing to wait until January to sign him on a free. Now, that was in the summer, and a lot changes in a year. So it doesn't mean that Arsenal will indeed do that. But the reason why we didn't go for him in the summer is because the asking price of Leicester was said to be too high for a player with that length of contract and in that situation. And again, come round to January, Tielemans apparently wanted to also wait until the summer to move on a free. Whether or not we end up being the club that he joins, we'll have to wait and see. But it was always my understanding, as I reported in the summer, that Tielemans was one for the summer. And as I understood it, Edu was prepared to wait to sign him on a free, if indeed we are still interested at that point during that period of the year. So let's see what happens regarding Tielemans. Sam says, Tom, why does it seem that always Arsenal that gets this massive backlash? I don't hear this about other Premier League clubs. 2 things on this. One, Arsenal is the club we support, and so therefore psychologically we have kind of this perception of Arsenal because we're so ingrained, focused, and kind of blinkered to Arsenal that maybe we don't necessarily see what's going on around it with other clubs. However, I think that Micah Richards makes a really good assessment of this when he made that comment on Sky, where he said, when it's Arsenal, everyone's hands are up in the air, everyone's talking about it because it's Arsenal. You know what I mean? So there is, I think, a bit of truth to it, but there's also, I think, a psychological element also. But I don't know why it's always Arsenal. Historically, we're not a very well-liked club. There are a lot of clubs like that, of course, but Arsenal have historically been not particularly well-liked outside of those that support them, really. So that probably feeds into it. And we're underdogs, and we've got a manager that people want to pick on, a young coach, a young squad. People don't really want to see teams succeed where they can't really understand why they're succeeding. They want to be proved right. You never win anything with kids. Remember that. So, yeah, I think that's probably some of the reasons as to why. Rio says, hi, Tom. Watching, and welcome to the TGT family. Watching the B team chart you showed, this is the first time I've felt no reluctance if any one of them are playing on the pitch. Finally. Yeah, it's a great feeling to have a bench that looks really well stocked with quality. And that, you could exchange 1 or 2 players in the starting 11 and you shouldn't see necessarily too much of a drop in the team, whether you're swapping out White for Tomiyasu or Gabriel for Kivior or Partey for Jorginho, but probably to a lesser extent, Odegaard for Vieira, Nketiah for Gabriel Jesus. We're in a Trossard for Gabriel Martinelli. If you're swapping out 1 or 2 players here and there, I do genuinely feel as though that we would be able to compete. And I think Arteta, that's the thing about the end of this season. And we talk a little bit about this on the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat pod that's going to be going out later. But it's important to remember that Arteta's never rotated successfully. And what I mean by that is that if you think about all of our Premier League games under Arteta has always, 99 times out of 100, played our strongest team. Every single time. He's never had to learn to rotate players. And that is something that he still needs to learn. And he will have to learn as we go and try to become a team that is at the top. The famous fantasy football curse of Pep Roulette. Man City are the most successful team in the recent past of the Premier League because Pep has a brilliant squad that he can rotate, make changes week on week, game by game, and the quality doesn't drop. He rotates effectively, he rotates efficiently, and Arteta has never had to do that because he just starts his best team in every game, in every Premier League fixture at least, not necessarily in the Cups and the Europa League, but every game he plays the best team. And so that is something that he is going to have to learn, to rotate 1 or 2 players, to keep some fresh, to keep players happy, to keep the team competitive and humble. That's what we're going to need. And I look forward to seeing if he can achieve that. And then whether he can do that, that's going to be really, really big for Arteta and a big challenge for him as well. Let's go to Dan, who says, hi, Tom. Can I shock you? When we had Henry and Kanu and Wiltor and Suka, not forgetting Bergkamp, also a forward all in one team. So why can't Balogun be a third striker? It's a good point. We had a lot of players, a lot of forwards. And obviously, quickly, we got rid of them. Because if you remember the Invincible season, we'd moved on Suka, obviously, by that point. We moved on Kanu by that point. And Wiltor was he departed, I think, at the end of the summer window, just before the season started. He played in the first couple of games, didn't he? And then moved on. And then it was Henry and Bergkamp. And there was a little bit of depth behind them. But beyond that, we suddenly kind of shaved that down. So it's not in the club's interest to have that many forwards. It's just not. It's just not in the club's interest to have that. Yeah, Ali Adier, I think, was there at the time. Was he not? Or was that slightly after? But usually had the young players coming through. So yeah, that's where we were in terms of the league, in terms of the squad. But you're right, we had a lot of players, and we brought in Reyes in January. I think Van Persie joined. Did he join the year? Did he join in 2004? Let me check that. It's really testing my Arsenal memory at the moment. Let's go back. Van Persie joined Arsenal in 2004, so he joined the summer after the Invincibles season, and then all of a sudden we had another striker. So, and you had Ali Adier as well. So yes, you could argue that Thierry Henry was there, and Van Persie was there, and Ali Adier was there, and we had three strikers. But Arsenal obviously were competing across 4 competitions. And the hope is that Arsenal will be able to do that. But you've got to keep them happy. You've got to keep them happy. And keeping Balogun happy after scoring 14 goals so far, he's on for a 28-goal season at the moment. You've got to keep that guy happy and play him. How are we going to do that? Is he going to want to be able to be rotated? Is he going to want to have to fight for his place in the Arsenal team? We'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see. Aditya says, Tom, any update on Smith Rowe? Nothing specific. We'll hear from Mikel Arteta on Friday, tomorrow. So we should hopefully get an update on Smith Rowe. We were told that it was minor, a minor injury. It shouldn't be too serious. Hopefully he'll be back soon. And, it's not surprising after a long period out, as he has had, that then he has a little minor problem. That's very, very common. It happens all the time after you suffer those injuries. It's not related to that injury in the sense of it's not in the same area, but what it is, it's unrelated in the sense, that's what I mean. It's unrelated in the sense that it's not the same part of your body. He's not injured his groin, it's a thigh issue, but because he had a serious injury elsewhere and now he's coming back, it's very normal to get another injury elsewhere in the body because they've been overcompensating at times for the areas that are weaker. So yes, that's the latest on Smith Rowe. But as I say, hopefully we'll get tomorrow we'll get an update on him. Thank you everybody that's tuned into this morning's show. Much appreciate the kind support. Still over 1,000 of you, well over 1,000 of you listening, which is amazing considering that the window has now closed and you're still willing to make this part of your daily routines. It means so much. Do drop a like on the video if you haven't done so already. Please do subscribe to the channel as we help our way towards 45,000 subs. I'll be back 2 more times for you today. You'll be having a show at midday and you'll be having a show at 6 p.m. There won't be a 8 a.m. show tomorrow. I'll put out now, which sucks because, I really don't want to lose our momentum that we keep building forwards. But there won't be an 8 a.m. show because the press conference tomorrow is at 9:30 a.m. and I've got to get there. So there's no way that I can do an 8 a.m. show. I was tempted to release the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat podcast tomorrow at 8. I might do that. That might be the way forwards because so you have some content. And we're already doing 2 shows today. So I am tempted to do the show, the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat show at 8. In fact, I might do that. That might be a better idea so we spread content other than having 3 shows today. So yes, that's what we'll do. We'll do the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat pod will be out tomorrow at 8 so that you've got some morning content. And there'll be a premiere, so there'll be a live chat so you guys can still chat in the chat box tomorrow morning at 8. But yeah, sorry, no normal live show tomorrow morning because I'm traveling to the presser. But hopefully we get some really good insight from Arteta, of course, in the press conference tomorrow on a lot of things. I've got a number of things I want to ask him. So let's see. Let's see what happens. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, I will speak to you this evening, 6 p.m. And of course, I'll join you at some point on the Arsenal way, although not not today. Don't have a 10 a.m. show for me today. But yes, 6 p.m. UK time tonight. Have a fantastic Thursday. And as always, up the Arsenal.